Moonlight on Open Graves. Chapter 1. Old Jake resigned from licking his grievous wounds and lay his heavy head down. No stopping it, he thought, and let his blood spill freely into the straw-covered dirt floor. An icy coldness set upon him and racked his frame in spasms as his torso rose and fell with pained breaths. What, just a case of wrong place, wrong time. Nothing a dog's to do about it but lie down private. No need troubling master with an old dog's bad luck. Mustn't trouble. It's my time. That evening, Jake had been hit and mangled by a car. The car took him underneath, rolled him, and then spat him out like a grape, all snapped and broken up inside. The driver never stopped, but instead sped off. The dog managed to make the barn, and that was it, dragging himself with front paws as his hind quarters now refused to move. Once inside, the hound collapsed like an overladen manure cart with a busted axle. An owl looked down at him wide-eyed from a crossbeam and blinked, then flew out into the moonlit night. In time, death casually arrived, and Jake greeted it with a low, mournful howl. Vernon P. Hicks was up late for a farmer. There was a heaviness all about him, crushing in on him from all directions. After recovering a pint flask of rye whiskey from under his tractor seat, the 35-year-old dairy and hay farmer strolled out the barnyard aimlessly for a bit. He was talking to himself in low tones, halting here and there to raise the flask up to the opalescent moon, whereupon he took several swigs, uttering several names with each drink. Vern's war. His war demons were kicking up in him again, and the whiskey knocked him back down nice and neat, just for a while. That's when the dog's death howl interrupted the whiskey salutations, and Vern corked the bottle and set out to investigate. In a minute, Jake was found lying within the tack room located in the back of the barn, his wounds a glistening white and red in the silver moonlight that poured in through a window. "Jesus, Jake!" The dog couldn't lift its own head, and its howls ceased. Just sucking in air was a huge task, as the iciness was leaving now, to be replaced by a tired numbness. Too late, the dog thought. I've troubled master with my bad luck. Bad luck. Vern quickly retrieved the lantern from where it hung on a nearby nail and, lighting it, kneeled to look the old hound over and make the required assessments. 2-3 ribs busted in, one showing through. Innards all punctured up too, no doubt. And Jake's right leg, it looked to be damn near twisted clean off right at the knee. To complete the sight, blood and saliva dripped from the old dog's mouth and frothed out his nostrils in a crimson foam. Oh, damn, he thought. The lungs and guts are punctured up pretty bad. The assessment was complete. Vern stared deep into Jake's fevered eyes and scratched his graying whiskers gently. The man gently held the dog's warm, panting head tenderly in one hand. Jake gazed up into Vern's eyes. The dog's eyes conveyed both love and a silent, painful request. Damn it! Vern shook his head. Vern's eyes teared up. All those nights out coon hunting, all the summer days accompanying him on the walks down to the pond or fishing at the stream. always guarding his house and farm, always on duty, always faithful. He was a good dog, yes, in fact, a damn good dog. As the tall white clouds sailed by, both exposing and concealing the moon, the eerie lighting constantly shifted within the barn. Vern rubbed his eyes. He lowered his voice and softened his tone. You were a good dog. Yep, since you was just a little pup. A damn good dog, old boy. Then the farmer stood, took another drink, and left the scene. He went into his house and came back to the barn. When he entered the barn, he knelt down in the moonlight opening. God, oh God, forgive me for this. Forgive me. Minutes later, he returned to the dog, knelt again, and after gently placing a calloused hand upon the stricken dog animal's head, he calmly spoke. Jake, please forgive me, old boy. And with wet eyes he stood. Poor dog, it's time for you to pass on to your next life. May we meet up again to run fields together, along kinder streams. He cocked his hat up to clear his field of sight and placed a thumb on the hammer that shared the right side of a 12-gauge double-barrel shotgun. There was number 4 lead shot charged within. Then slowly, with his thumb, click, click. Till then, Jake, Vern's body braced. Jake closed his eyes. Boom! Then the hens in the coop clucked, and the mare in her stall whinnied, just for a moment. The shotgun blast bucked Vern's shoulder hard, and it bored a gory hole deep into the straw-covered dirt. Dust and gun smoke filled the air. Through the haze, Vern could see Jake spasmodically flopping and kicking about on the ground like a huge landed catfish. Damn it! And he drew up to within a few feet of the dog. Click, click, boom! And the shotgun again bucked hard on his shoulder. The hens in the coop clucked again as the mare in her stall whinnied. Just for a moment, then all was still in the barn. Eyes wide, surveying the scene, Vern knew that Jake was now dead as dead gets. His father's Lefevre Arms double-barrel shotgun, checkered walnut stock, browned, not blued, twin barrels with its one central bead sight, was all wore smooth from 4 decades of constant farm and field service. Vern noticed specks of blood on the barrel and wiped it clean with his shirt tail, then cleared the gun of the spent shells and set it against the weathered wall. Next, taking his rye whiskey from his back pocket, Junior, as some of the townfolk called Vern, stood at attention and raised a salute. Here's to you, old friend. Fare thee well on your next journey. He went to take a solitary drink, but he couldn't with such a heavy heart. Instead, he set about looking in the barn for a shovel. His thoughts turned to a new worry. How was he going to break the news to Abby? No way around it. This, sure as rain on haying day, wasn't going to be easy. Suddenly, a solitary cool wind came rushing in through the barn door and blew his hat right off. Solitary as there was no evidence of wind or storm outside anywhere, anyway. The wind gathered up the still airborne straw and dust from the shotgun blast and carried it as it whistled about the enclosure, as if taking an inventory of things. Vern was obliged to partly shield his eyes from the debris as he watched the wandering devil wind consolidate itself and take on the form in the barn center. To his astonishment, the wind-whipped debris formed a distinct human-sized cocoon shape. The spectacle spun and bent this way and that as it wandered about the center of the barn, just about a foot off the ground. The shape then paused just before the dog. Vern thought that he perceived some certain personage in the thing, a hint of a face, and it was now looking at him. His whiskey flask, forgotten, tilted and spilt. The wind thing just ceased, and the dust and straw shape settled back onto the litter in the barn, and all was still and quiet as before. "Well, I'll be damned. What the hell was that all about?" Vern exclaimed out loud. After a few moments, he walked out into the moonlit barnyard and he looked around. There was not the slightest echoing of a breeze, let alone a storm. So what the hell was that all about? He wondered. The moon was huge before him and now seemed to smile down upon him, man of earth that he was. They regarded each other like old distant satellite friends. For a few somber moments, that is, until a towering cloud came between them and broke the spell. Back in the barn, next to Jake's ravaged carcass, Vern found his whiskey pint knocked over, and he sadly regarded the aromatic puddle of sweet liquor as it wetted the ground. Just as well, he thought. He didn't want it anyway, because he didn't want Abby to know that he'd been hitting the bottle again. Dragging the huge dog out behind the barn, he set to work with a spade. About a half hour later, Junior stepped through the back door into his warm kitchen. The smell of coffee mingled with cigarette smoke in the dimly lit room. There was a fresh-picked bundle of wildflowers in a vase on the table where 20-year-old Abby Hicks sat smoking a cigarette, a habit she'd picked up from her boyfriend. The flowers were nice, orange, yellow, red. Vern stood there in the door in a dirty white t-shirt. "Catch that windstorm while I was out?" as he said as he took his boots off and laid them next to the door. "What? What windstorm are you talking about?" Abby said, who was playing solitaire. She looked up from her cards and stared at the tall, lean man. Strange things seemed to happen to her older brother Vern all the time. He was a magnet for weird, unnatural events, and he'd been out drinking again. She could smell it. She knew he would be. She could predict it by reading his moods. Vern thought about it. "Never mind. Got any more of that coffee made?" "Yeah," Abby said as she's getting up. "What was that shooting all about out there? It woke me up." And she poured him a cup full of steaming black coffee, strong from the bottom of the pot, and set it on the counter. "There's your coffee." The farmer hit the coffee, sighed a bit as it cleared his head some. "Not much, just taking care of the farm, that's all." God, how Vern hated to lie to her. But sometimes, under certain odd conditions, maybe a lie was strangely the right thing. Maybe? Verdict was out yet on the white lie principle. Just the same, he would have rather been straight out and told her about Jake. But then she would have wanted him to take Jake to the vets instead. Doubt set in. Maybe he should have told her about the dog the moment he discovered it. Maybe he should have given the mangled dog a chance at recovery, regardless of how doubtful that chance appeared to be. Maybe the booze had altered his judgment. Damn. Indecision and self-doubt weakened him when he drank. Again, he willfully listed off the same 3 reasons he had employed when he made the tough decision to terminate the dog. 1. The dog's wounds were without a doubt fatal. 2. He just would have suffered longer unnecessarily. 3. The other thing was that neither Vern nor Abby could afford the vets, and besides, Vern still owed him $500 for past work on an old horse that suffered more and died the same week anyway. No, he'd made and acted upon the right decision, as hard as it was, and it was hard. Abby was home from college for a few months, where she was working on her bachelor's in science and horticulture with a minor in agricultural sciences. Her presence was greatly appreciated at the farm. The two of them sat quietly at the table, taking their coffee for a little while. Abby got up first. "I'm going back to bed. Good night." "Good night. See you in the morning." Vern remained seated, thinking, reflecting. He recalled a poem he read not long ago by Robert Frost. The old dog barked backwards without getting up. Why, I remember when he was just a pup. And he sighed and slowly got up and ascended the narrow stairs and sauntered down the dark corridor to his own dingy, cluttered room. "You were a good dog, Jake. You were a good dog."